Hello, Athlete Mindset community. This is Lisa Bonta Sumii, the host of Athlete Mindset. Before we dive into this episode, I want to invite you to support the mission and purpose of our show. For $10 a month, you can help to make sure these conversations get to as many athletes, teams, coaches, and sport mental health environments as possible. As a subscriber, you will receive exclusive content and updates on current topics in athlete mental health, and you'll be directly contributing to the betterment of mental health for all athletes. Join the cause. Subscribe at sportse.io/athlete and make a difference today. Again, that's sportse.io/athlete. With your support and amplification, we can ensure more voices are heard and more individuals and communities are positively impacted. Today, I'm so excited for this Athlete Mindset podcast interview because we're going to have all kinds of fun. I'm here with Brandi Chastain, people. Like, what the hell? I am going to introduce her because she deserves that introduction, but you don't need it, but she deserves it, if that makes sense. So here I go. Brandi Chastain, who I'm sitting with right now, is a revered figure in soccer, achieved remarkable success during her 16-year tenure with the U.S. women's national team, earning 192 caps and scoring 30 goals as both a defender and midfielder. Her pivotal penalty shootout goal, which we will talk about, and the 1999 FIFA Women's World Cup final secured the championship for the United States and solidified her status as a legend in the sport. Brandi's impact extended beyond the international stage, and she also made significant contributions to pro soccer, playing for clubs in Japan, and I didn't know that, and the U.S. Honored as part of the U.S. women's national team all-time best 11 and inducted into the National Hall of Fame and Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, Chastain's legacy serves as an inspiration to athletes worldwide, symbolizing excellence, leadership, and perseverance in women's soccer, and currently is a co-founder of Bay FC, further cementing her role as a leader and innovator in the sport. What do you think about that introduction? What do you think, Brandi?
Number one, thank you. Number two, I feel like that's like what happens to you when you get older.
What happens? It gets longer?
Yeah, it gets
That's
longer.
Hilarious. I love that.
No, but you know what's really nice about it is everything along those lists are not individual things. Those are team-oriented, big moments, historical moments really for women's soccer. You know, the first to be in the World Cup, win a World Cup, the first to be in the Olympic Games, winning a gold medal at home. Being the first has really been something this national team has really embraced. And it's really interesting. In 2024, we're 25 years away from 99. We're going to celebrate the 25th anniversary this July at a U.S. women's national team game before they go off to the Paris Olympics.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're just thinking about, man, we should have done something with this 99ers. So we're gonna all come back together and do something. So this team has always thought about the bigger picture, and I think it's always given me, a sense of belonging, but everybody has something to contribute. And depending on the time of the game or the circumstance, it could be what you think and anticipate, or it could be something totally different. And you just have to be ready for that.
Totally. I mean, I love your humility, and, there's no I in team, as we know, that whole cliche. You take that seriously. Before we dive deeper into all that you said, because it was a lot and really, really great, we have to know what was behind the celebration after the shootout, after the penalty kick. Who designed it? Did you think about it on the fly? Like, where did it come from? We all want to know.
Yeah, that was total insanity, Lisa. Honestly, what I love about that moment and what I remember most, and, every 5 years or 10 years I get away from that moment, it means something different to me. At a different stage in my life, I look back and I can say, oh, I can see that from this perspective now. But I think initially You cannot imagine what your emotions will do or be in a moment like that. You can't prepare for it. I mean, there was no preconceived idea that we were going to penalty kicks, first of all,
I mean, well,
and
that,
that
yeah.
I,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that I would be the last one. That was like the furthest thing from my mind. So it was a spur of the moment, in the moment. I think when I first looked at it post that game, it kind of took me aback and it was like, what are you doing? What did you do? And to your question, what did it mean? I kind of slowly got to joy, gratitude, respect, confidence. This game basically allowed me to be my true self. And that was kind of this unveiling, like that's that moment.
Mm,
And
uh-huh.
so it was a lot of different things for a lot of different reasons. And in the moment with 90,000 plus people on a 115 degrees day in Pasadena, that's what you got.
That's
That's what
what
you
you
got.
got. That's what you got. And we loved it. We love it all these years later for sure. I polled my athlete mindset community for some of the questions because I was like, from where you sit, like if you got to sit with Brandi Chastain, what questions would you ask? So some of those come from my community. And here's one of
Okay.
them. What is it about playing that kept you in the game for so long?
I really like this question. I feel like there's a really simple answer, and then there's the more complex answer that happened like as my career took the path of less taken route. So the initial answer and the simple truth is I just love playing. I love getting dirty. I love sweating. I love like the physicality of the game. I love attempting to be better every day. I love the 1v1 dynamic. And I loved with my teammates. Like I honestly just found so much joy on the field in so many dimensions that I never could, and I still to this day cannot get enough of it. I go to the field now with BFC, and I'm just watching from the sideline of practice, and I am just so full of joy and happiness that the game keeps giving back to me over and over again. The complex side of things is that it wasn't smooth and that it was
Mm,
quite messy actually along the way. And I think my youth career was pretty easy. There wasn't a lot of things like there are today for young kids. There was only one national team, that was the full team. You could make your all-star local team and then you could make
mhm.
the regional team. And then that was pretty much it. There was 75 Division 1 women's soccer programs. Now there's 325 Division 1 programs, and there's thousands of programs that are in the other divisions. And I tore both ACLs back to back. I missed 2.5 years of college soccer. All the good stuff that we talk about with the national team, World Cups and Olympics happened after those two injuries. So, I mean,
Mm,
that's quite a journey to go through the first one and be like, oh, what a bummer. Like, that's tough to be on the sideline for the first time ever in your career.
right.
And then for it to happen right after that again to the other one. And then you get into the why me, why now? And the answer I came up with in that moment and in the tough moments, like when I was cut from the team after the World Cup in 91 and I didn't play in 95, was I still love the game. And
Yeah.
people are like, why are you still doing this? And I felt better pursuing whether that was getting healthy, whether that was getting back to the field, whether that was then feeling comfortable, gaining more confidence, getting called back to the national team, playing internationally, and going to the Olympics, going to the World Cup. So I just feel like everything was a blessing after that, but it wasn't
Mm,
easy. And there was a lot of up and down and sideways and backwards. And I think that for me, I believe this messy journey that I had was necessary for me to truly gain the perspective necessary because before it was too easy. It was too
mm.
easy. Soccer was simple for me. And I think this gave me perspective.
I so appreciate it because you're answering all the questions I had here that I was going to ask you all in that one story. But I want to highlight the piece that you're saying in the complex answer. It's not easy. And I think I will
Yeah.
amend one of my community members' questions in how did you face adversity in the form of injury, in the form of injury recovery. Like, I think that's really important, that when we face adversity, it can be the end of the world for some of us, especially the youngins, but actually builds resilience. So how did you approach your injury recover any setbacks that you experienced?
Well, first, I was extremely fortunate. I had super incredible amount of people around me that were
Mm-hmm.
very supportive. They held really critical roles. I had one of my teammates at the time I took my first injury. Her boyfriend was a physical therapist. He was there. And I started the next, gosh, I just went to him. I had my knee replaced 2 Decembers ago, and he's still my physical therapist. And that's 30 something
Wow.
years later. And
Wow.
so I think having that stability, having my family, and initially my mom and dad, like, they didn't give me an out to say, like, that's it, I'm done. But they also didn't say, you have to do this. And they basically just showed up and they said, we're here. What do you need? What can we do? And we're going to support you where you are. And I think that was really incredible. And to be honest with you, I think I came to this conclusion. I think somewhat watched my mom. My mom was my role model and my
Mm,
hero
mm,
because she gave up her career to become a mom and to get married because you couldn't be married and have kids as a flight attendant. And that was her dream, was to be a flight attendant. She made that happen. And then she wanted to have a family. And so she gave that up. And then she ended up over the years being a housewife, a mom. Then she started working in the school. And then once we were at an age where we were semi self sufficient, she started working. And then she became a vice president of a company that worked with all the high end tech companies in Silicon Valley. And she didn't have a secondary education. And she just was tough and resilient. And she saw something and she went after it. And she always had a smile on her face, even when things were hard. And, she said, I don't know that, but I'll figure a way out. And I think ultimately she gave me a saying, which was find your yes. There's always going to be people
mm,
who say, you can't do this. You're not good enough. You don't belong. This is not for you. But if it really is something that you truly believe in or you have passion for, there's a way to find your yes. You'll find it
mm,
if you're consistent enough. And so she gave me that. I think that was kind of like how my blood coursed through my body. And I think second to that was, well, what was my alternative? To give up? To quit? I love soccer way too much.
mm,
I
mhm.
found much more joy going through the pain than I did giving up. And so for me, it never became a question.
Wow. Going through the pain, going through the struggle, going through the challenge, the adversity, knowing
Yep.
that you will come out the other side stronger. You've done it
Yep.
over and over again. That's a familiar dynamic for you. I love that your mom is that for you. It's so cool. We're going to talk about parent influence on youth athletes in a little bit, but you've learned so much from your mom, your career in soccer. What would you say the top three learning lessons are that you've taken from the beautiful game that have guided you beyond the pitch into who you are today and who have you become over the years?
Yeah. I'll give them in descending order. I think the third lesson I learned is that you don't always get what you want when you want it, but you can get what you need if you become vulnerable and put yourself out there. And in those moments, one person can really impact somebody's life. And that's a leadership lesson Carla Overbeck gave me when I scored an own goal in the quarterfinal against Germany and we were down 1-0. And it wasn't so much only that I scored an own goal in front of 75 plus thousand people in Washington, D.C. in the quarterfinal knockout round of the World Cup, but the message around that World Cup that whole time was the future of women's soccer and where women in sports are today was dependent upon us winning the World Cup. Like there was this underlying current because never before had women's sports been placed upon this big of a stage and in these big stadiums with this much attention. And so for it to work, for it to move forward, we had to win because we were filling the stadiums and we couldn't let anybody down. So I think Carla's leadership, when she came over to me and she said, don't worry about it. I think in that moment, especially for young girls, we always feel we have to tick 10 out of 10 boxes and we have to be perfect to believe that we're good enough for the job, or that we fit the criterion to play the position, or that we're the best option out there. And we don't have to do those things. And especially in moments where it's failure, scoring an own goal is the most egregious thing you can do in soccer. I could have gone to that place. I could have been, I'm not good enough. I let the team down. Why did the coach put me in this position? I've lost the game. The future of women's soccer is dust in the wind. But she said, don't worry about it. We're going to win this game and you're going to be a part of that. And that trust and that respect that you get in that moment, like, literally lifted me up. And I was like, awesome. I didn't think about that goal for 1 second longer. I went on in that game and I ended up scoring another goal, this time for our team. And we went on to win that game, obviously, and moved to the semifinal and on to the final. The second one was the Tony DiCicco penalty kick decision. We're playing, this is China in the final. We've gone 120 minutes of absolute just bending, not breaking. It's so hot. We're playing the best team in the world, basically. And we are just in this intense battle. Now we get to the PKs, and Tony approaches me after our assistant coach approached me and asked me if I wanted to take a penalty. And I said, yes, no problem. I got it. In the run of play, I would have taken a penalty. So I found it a little bit curious and a little bit odd, but I didn't have enough mental capacity at that time to really spend too much time on it. I mean, we were exhausted, and I was saving the energy for the most important thing, which was to just complete the kick. But then Tony came over to me and he said, okay, you're going to take the penalty. And I said, yep, I already talked to Lauren. No problem. I got it. He goes, put his hand on my shoulder and he said, okay, you're going to take it with your left foot and be left. And that's a really critical moment in my life. And I use this moment in so many non-sporting ways, because I'd never taken a penalty with my left foot in my life in a game. And now he's asking me in front of 90,000 people to do something I've never done. And again, like Carla, Tony comes over to me. What he was telling me was, instead of asking me a question, what he was telling me was, you're going to do this. And I believe in you. And I trust you.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And so in that moment, instead of worrying about, why is he asking me that? How am I going to do it? What's going to happen? I said yes. And that goes to my mom's find your yes, right? Because in that moment, all I needed was to believe that everything was going to be fine. All of the 4 players before me all did fantastic penalty kicks. Brianna Scurry saved the third one. And that just gave me an opportunity just to take a deep breath and proceed to the ball and put it down with confidence, and to step back and just hit it like I meant it. And so that was the number 2, which was, that trust and respect and belief that a coach can give a player in a moment, but also that a player has to embrace. A coach would not put you in a position not to be successful. I thought about this much later, obviously, Lisa, because in the moment I didn't spend extra energy on this, but Tony's success also depended upon us coming through. And so for him to make that choice at the end in that manner, most coaches would be like, you're crazy. Like, that is the nuttiest thing you could ever possibly do. But I think that confidence that, in practice I showed I could do it, and he wanted something different. I had missed a penalty earlier in the year with my right foot against China, and he wanted to show something different. And I think the confidence and the courage it takes to make a decision like that in that big circumstance, I think has given me the desire to lead teams in big moments like that, and to give them the courage to say, we can do that too.
That's incredible. I did not know that story. Wait, my mind is still like, so I don't know if we're going to talk about this now or offline or whatever, but his thing was basically he trusts you. He needed you to have a new challenge or believe in you. He wanted you to know that he believed in you, right or left. What was he thinking? Was that what it was?
Well, let me tell you my number one.
Okay.
I have a 1A, 1B tie really for the two lessons that I've learned. And one was from my grandfather, who really taught me the lesson about giving is better than receiving. I was not a good teammate when I was a kid. I wanted the ball. I didn't care about anybody's feelings. I was going to score the goal. I was going to be the player. It always was an I thing. And my grandfather recognized that. And he said, okay, hey, I'm going to give you $1 for every goal you score. And I was like, man, I'm going to make $1 million. It's going to be amazing. I mean, I was 10, I think. I'm going to make so much money. It's going to be amazing. And he said, but I'll give you $1.50 for every assist you make.
Whoa.
Yeah, he totally blew my mind on that one. And so I started to learn the value of giving and why it was important and how it could feel good. And the rewards you get from giving is really special. So that's my 1A. I think my 1B goes back to the national team and Tony DiCicco, which was my whole career leading up to the end of 95, post the World Cup. I was a forward, only played forward. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to score goals. I wanted the ball. I wanted to be the difference. I wanted to be like that adrenaline and that, all the chemicals that happen in your body, that explosion. I just love that. But when I came back to the national team in 95, I had 2 good camps. And then after the second camp, right before the Olympics, he said, we want you back on the team. And I was so happy, as every player would be, right? You're nervous. What's the coach going to say? Have I done enough? And then he said, but not as a forward, as a defender. And I was like, wait, what? I don't think I heard you right. Can you tell me that again? And so I think my 1B is that you have a lot of tools that you don't know how to use in other circumstances because you think that your tool only is used one way. So my example is, if you have a screwdriver and you've got this screw and you're putting it in, and all of a sudden you realize it's not a screw, it's a nail, and you need to hammer it. So you turn your screwdriver around and you just use the end. And what I learned was that really I had a lot of depth to my game. I wasn't just a forward. I had a lot of tools in playing a forward that actually benefited me as a defender. I could see the play coming. I knew what the forward was thinking. I saw the spaces that they wanted to try to get into, and I could exploit those things. And I had never thought about that before. So I trusted Tony for a lot of reasons. And one, because he gave me a chance to come back to the national team after being away for 4 years and to put me in a position I'd never played. And he did it unwavering. He said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put you in this position. You're going to help us change the way we play. And we want confident players in the back, who want the ball at their feet. And I had Christine Lilly in front of me and Carla Overbeck to the right of me. And I thought, gosh, if I can't be good between these two, then I won't be good enough. And so the number one thing is, we are multidimensional. We think we have only, A through D tools, but we really have the whole alphabet. And we have to be open to using those tools in ways that are unconventional and that are maybe not mainstream. And we have to be vulnerable about making mistakes while we're learning how to do that. And then the fun that comes along with just being like, I'm trying this for the first time. This is just awesome. And so I think what I call the number one for me is change is my jam. I love change. Change is scary. Change can be unsettling. Change can look different, but to me, change is like spices in cooking. It just makes everything so much better.
Wow. There's so much I can pull from that. There's so much. I think one thing that I pull from that also is that we need other people to see those dimensions in us, because sometimes we can't see them. He saw them in you and was trusted that you could be that. that defender, that left-footed penalty kicker, like that, and your openness. Because another young lady could have like just went to the sideline, threw up at that. Like, really?
Yeah,
You're
I think,
what?
yeah. Again, I think every human is vulnerable. We're all
Yes.
vulnerable. And I think sometimes we hide from those moments because they're uncomfortable and they make us feel less than sometimes, when really we know that the brain and bodies cannot grow without change and without mistakes and errors. And that's the only way, like, we light up our brain when errors happen and
Yes.
we allow that vulnerability. And so I guess that kind of speaks to like what I saw in my mom when she taught me about find your yes, was that I'm fearless. Like, what am I afraid of? It's not going to hurt to try and not fulfill something. Like, who cares? Like, I'm good with that. I mean, the greatest basketball player, maybe there's a controversy, Michael Jordan at the time was like, I miss more than I make. And the
Mm-hmm.
shots I don't take won't go in.
Right.
And if I don't try, I'll never know,
That's
you
right.
know? And so for me, it's like, I feel like it's a badge of honor when I show that I'm willing to step outside of my comfort zone and say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to raise
Mm-hmm.
my hand. I'll be the first. I'll jump off the edge and I'll come back up and I'll tell you how thrilling it was and how scary it felt standing there. But I survived and I'm even better now. So I
Yeah,
guess I'm thriving.
for sure. I
Yeah.
think it's so significant that you, who you are, how you influenced and still do soccer, young women playing soccer and men, to be honest. We don't hear enough in our society to welcome mistakes and to have this mindset that you do. We don't show that as much. We don't emphasize it. We only show the successes, the wins. And then so when
Yeah.
a young girl makes a mistake, as small or as big as it might feel like to her, there's so much shame and like, I'm going to, like you said, let the team down, let myself down, my parents down, my coach down. Like, it's such a big moment. How do you think we can
Yeah.
shift that, Brandy? Like,
Yeah. It's a good question because when I put on my coaching hat and I'm on the sideline or I'm coaching
yep.
during training, I'm quite demanding. I think I had to go through something really hard, which was I was coaching my son and I was a little too tough.
Mm,
And I didn't give him the leeway maybe he needed. And this was me learning how to be a better coach. And maybe I shouldn't have been his coach. Maybe he needed somebody else than me, and I could have been the support system. But I love soccer so much, I wanted to be in there. So I learned the lesson about whose journey is that. But as a coach, going back to me as a coach and the players that I do coach, what I attempt to do is to empower them with the idea that I'm going to give you some parameters, I'm going to give you some rules and guidelines and techniques, and I'm going to give you an insight into something, and then we're going to practice it. And we're going to repeat it. We're going to repeat it with no pressure. We're going to repeat it in big spaces with a little pressure. Then we're going to get a little tighter and we're going to put a little more pressure, and I'm going to give you the outs. I'm going to give you the outs. Here's the way you get out of it. Here's the way you can accept pressure. Here's the way you have to, have a smile on your face when you're feeling like jello on the inside, because
mm,
you're going to feel like that sometimes. But I believe that perception is reality. If you give like I'm cool on the outside, then what you're saying to the opponent is, oh, I can't rattle that person, even if you're feeling nervous on the
mhm.
inside. And that's a really great tool to have. So I want to help my players learn that type of resiliency, and that, like, I'm going to be okay. Even if I'm scared, I can give this front that I'm okay and I'm going to be fine, and then show myself I am fine. And sometimes when we don't get it right, I'm like, hey, that's the moment I'm talking about. That's what we worked on. Remember when? What is the situation? I asked the why. Why are we doing that? What do we see? And I want them to answer the questions. And then we do it again. And we do it again. And we're going to make a lot of mistakes. And as my younger players did, I had two teams that were younger. and probably a third tier team playing in a first tier league. And we didn't win many games, but boy, we got better. We got better, and the players started to learn the confidence. And when they did something great, this is what I think is really where the value is, Lisa. And I want all the players who are listening to this, I want all the parents who are listening to this, all the coaches that are listening to this, to really soak up the moment. And we need to celebrate when something good happens. I remember on the field when something would happen. First goal of the Women's World Cup in '99, I'm playing left back. Mia Hamm is up kind of on the right side, and I play a ball driven across, and it gets to her, and she scores the first goal of the World Cup. And inside, I was like, oh, it was like, yes, like we have to celebrate the good things we do. And when I looked at Mia and she looked at me, we were both like, yep, we just did that. Like we got each other. And I think that connection is so important. We can't let those moments go by without recognizing them. And that's a culture that we need to allow our players to find that confidence, then to make the mistakes and find that moment where they're like, oh, I did it. I did it. And everybody's like, we saw that. We got you. That was amazing.
What about the coach or parent who thinks that's being soft on the player if they celebrate too much, or, or like they're going to get egotistical or not work hard or complacent? Because those exist, they do. How do we handle that?
Well, I can only explain my experiences.
Yep.
And that my experiences were that when I was in an environment and the culture was one about celebrating and supporting when we did good things. And listen, simultaneously, we would call each other out. Let me tell you, on the national team, if you weren't doing what you're supposed to do, believe me, Carla would let you know. Mia would let you know. April Heinrichs would let you know. Like, you got to do better.
Yeah.
This is where we are. And that's not a bad thing. That's not I hate you, you're the worst. That's not what that is.
That's right.
That's me saying, our standards are here. And I can even sometimes say, hey, that was me. That's my bad. I didn't do that right. I'm going to get the next one. And that's safe. That's a safe place. We can make mistakes safely, and then we have to celebrate. I say this specifically for girls because I remember this as if it was yesterday. I think I was 8 to 9 years old. I'm down at the playground. My brother's playing with his friends. They're fooling around playing basketball or something or other. I don't know. And I see my brother like, yeah, I'm the greatest. And, he's like 7, right? And I'm like, what the hell has this guy done that makes him think that he's so great? What I then took away some 20 or 30 years later thinking about that moment was he believed that. And he owned that. And we, as girls and women, feel like we have to do something so spectacular to say, I deserve that. When we should be building ourselves up so that we do, when that moment does come, we're going to take it. And so I like to say we have to celebrate things, because if you can't feel good about the good things you do, nobody else can. And then we waste an opportunity to lift our standard, to lift our spirit, to lift our confidence. And that's a travesty if we don't use that moment for good.
I appreciate you breaking it down and saying, this is my experience. This is where I thrived. And if you say that, a lot of people are going to listen. I think I want to go back to this piece that you said when you were coaching your son and being a parent, and you asked the question, whose journey is that really?
Yeah.
Like, is that mine or his? Or like, I think parents, there's a whole lot of talk. I know you know about it in youth soccer about how parents are just yelling and screaming and demanding and mortifying their young athlete, and like with embarrassing statements and things like that in front of their friends, quote unquote, all this stuff. How do you even know to ask that question? Whose journey is this, mine or my kids? And how do you answer that?
Well, I made a lot of mistakes, Lisa.
Yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes and things were not going well. And I had to take pause. And for me, I feel like part of the equation was I wanted to be a coach. And so it was me being a coach for my son.
Yeah.
Instead of me as the parent being the coach and parenting while I was coaching my son. So I tried to take I'm the coach, I'm going to treat you like the other kids, which is kind of like what my dad did for me or to me at times. And what I didn't recognize is that wasn't working for my son. And that was really hard. It was hard for him. It's turned out to be hard for me because I feel like sports is so incredible, and we don't want kids leaving sports before they have to or need to or want to or ever. And so I want to be a coach, and I did not recognize it early enough to take myself out of that position and say, somebody else will do that. I'll be a parent here. I'll coach somebody else. And I wanted to be a part of that, like my dad was a part of that for me. And it didn't work. And that's honest.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability. I mean, you're talking about it, but you're also being it, which is so appreciated by me. And I know anyone listening. I think that we wear so many hats, especially as women. And like, how do we sometimes wear a half a hat and another half a hat, or no hat at all, or this hat? It can be internally conflictual. Like, I know for me, it's like sometimes, do I take this new job or this new gig or this new contract? How's that going to affect my family? Like, I mean, I'm not going to say it never happens, but men don't have to answer that question or even wonder about it.
Not very often.
No. And I think that that's a privilege and a burden sometimes, and that we have to move through it, right? I think you're speaking of like the youth, the young ladies, the young girls. You've talked a lot about them. There's a specific question from the Ask Mindset community. What's the most valuable advice you'd share with young players heading into an official recruiting year?
Well, I chuckle only because things have changed so much now with NIL.
True.
Yeah, things have totally changed. So my answer could be slightly antiquated. I'll give it anyway.
Yes, and then we can touch on that other stuff. But yes.
Yeah. I think because I've been watching my husband be a coach at Santa Clara for 38 years, one thing I have witnessed time and time again is his repeated messaging to young people about they're in charge of the journey. There's one coach at Santa Clara, one coach at University XYZ, and there's a million soccer players. If you really are interested in a place, you need to invest time. You need to know more than just writing a letter. Dear coach, my name is, I play this position. Come and watch me play at this tournament. You have to do a little more. You have to dig down deep. What's the history of the team? Who's on the team at this time? And, maybe what's available coming in the future? What are your skill sets that maybe match what that team does and how you could be a benefit, or what it is you want to learn and how you could be a leader for others? And, what kind of leadership skills do you bring to an environment, and how does it make the environment better? Leadership, I think sometimes we talk about leadership and sometimes young people think leadership is I want to do, when it's like I can help other people. Leadership in that environment is about looking out and making sure everybody else is good, and at the same time taking care of myself. But it's not about me first. So I think leadership skills, what kind of teammate are you? How can you be a positive influence in the culture of whatever team? And so I would say do your due diligence. Check out the universities. What kind of player are you? What do you want out of a situation? I mean, everybody is in it for different reasons. And I do not begrudge anybody for their circumstances, their needs, their desires. Those are theirs. That's it. But I would say do your homework. A coach will never push aside a player who's really looked deep into something and said, oh, I see that this is what you do and this is how you do it, and this is where my skill set would fit, and this is how I could learn from you, and this is where I want to grow. And boy, that would be amazing. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Not I want to be on a team whose university has a big football team, and it's pretty cool, and you guys got nice gear, and you got a cool locker room.
Please not that. Please not that.
Yeah.
I think though, especially it's so important. Again, like what you can add, the value, what you can give. I think that
Mhm.
can be a very vulnerable position for a young lady getting recruited at such a young age to admit that they still need to grow, that they still need to learn. They're so ego-centered, right? They think that they know everything and I'm going to come in here and like change the program. And like, what does it take for, I mean, listening to you is one. I mean, I'm going to play this over and over for whoever needs to see this piece. This is what she's saying. Look what Brandi Chastain has done, is achieving, that you have to show that you are always a lifelong learner and coachable and want to learn and want to lean into that, and that's not a weakness, right?
Yeah, and I think there's something else that goes along with it, especially in this day and age, because of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And now we have fifth year seniors,
Right.
going on to graduate school. And now they're taking, they're coming into new environments as a first time player playing one season at a new university. And
Right.
what I would say to young players is this is a journey. Please don't come in and think, if I don't play every game, if I don't start every game, like, this is a journey. This is going to be such an amazing ride if you allow it to be. Is it going to be hard? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't think it's going to be hard, you don't have your head in the right position. And my husband will say all the time, I just want you all to know right now, you might want to think about going somewhere else because this is going to be hard. And that's what he says. So right away, he's like, hey, if you're not comfortable with that, don't even think about coming here because it's not going to be easy. And it shouldn't be easy because ultimately, Lisa, the truth of the matter is I was just doing a panel with, listen to these people: Mark Messier, Larry Fitzgerald, Serena Williams, Pau Gasol, Tom Brady. And I mean, Tom Brady is a perfect example. He comes into Michigan from here in, Northern California,
Yep.
and he's
Yep.
this tall, skinny. He doesn't get on the field for years.
Yep. Yep.
Years. He goes on to win 7 Super Bowls. Like, if that is not a perfect example of patience and work and understanding it, that it's a process. Now, was he happy all the time? No, of course, he's a competitor. But this is a journey and you have to embrace all of these things. And it is easy for me to say now. I have gone through all of it, Lisa.
Yep.
I started at Cal Berkeley. I
Mm-hmm.
was the freshman player of the year. I tore my ACL in the spring of my freshman year. I redshirted my next year. I was academically ineligible. I was floundering. I was lost. I didn't know what I should be doing. I was hurt. I wasn't playing. Everything was going the wrong direction. And I came home. I went to a junior college. Just after I decided to say yes to Santa Clara, the week later, I tore my other ACL. Like, it couldn't get any worse. It couldn't get any worse. And then I thought, well, the only thing it has is that it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It's going to get better. But I had to go through that. I had to go through that. And so I want every young player to know that I hope you enjoy the hard. I
Mm.
hope you enjoy that because that is the most satisfying when you come out on that other side and you're like, shit, man, that was not easy. And I did it.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody can take that away from me
Mm-mm.
ever, ever.
I think what you're saying, and I think it's an important point beyond this, and this is maybe it's not as profound as what you're saying, but let's not use the transfer portal as a way out when things are going bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I hear what you're saying. I want to say this as a transfer student,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
recognized that the
Mm-hmm.
place that I was not the right place for me. I'm so lucky that I had that experience. I would not change that part at all.
Gotcha.
At all. I learned a lot. I met some great people. I experienced a lot of things that I had never been exposed to. I mean, I was on a big campus. Like, it was all good. But down deep, I just knew it wasn't really the place
But
for me.
that's different though, Brandi, than I'm going to enter the portal because we're losing and I don't like the coach or something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, to
Okay.
some
Okay.
degree, I will try to navigate that, which is, this is a very brief time in my life. I have 5 years to play 4 seasons. And if it's not working for me, now, if I have legitimately extended myself and invested in the team and done all these things and it's not working, it's all good. It's not working for me. Okay. I don't want someone who's not happy, who feels that they are not having the experience they want. Life is too short. If you're just going to jump around because you're pissed off about something, usually you're not doing what you need to do. That's different.
Yeah.
That's different. Again, remember earlier I said you got to go through the hard part.
Yeah.
The hard part is really where the good stuff happens. So are you doing that, or are you like, you're getting your toe in the water and you're like, nope, that's too cold. I'm not getting in.
Yeah,
I'm not going for that. Only you know. And that's what I would leave it at. Like, everybody has to be able to look at themselves and say, I'm doing my best. I'm not doing my best. I'm investing. I'm not investing. I'm exhausting my resources. I'm not exhausting my resources. And then you have to make a choice. Then you make a choice.
I get that. No, that's really great to outline it like that, for sure. For sure. For sure. You founded BAFC with like your best friends, pretty much. How did the idea come about? How does your vision for women in soccer, the future of women in soccer, play into this decision you all made?
Well, the previous 2 iterations of women's professional soccer domestically here in the US ran through Northern California and, the South Bay area. And, that was 2001 to 2003 with WUSA, and then 2009, 2010 into 11 with the WPS. We've always had history in women's soccer. We have historically always had a team. We've historically always sold out stadiums when the national team come. Historically, we've had 40% of the women's national team come through this place. So we have a significant impact on women's soccer in this country. It just so happened that after WPS folded and the NWSL began, we didn't have a team and things were shifting. Women's sports were, as they were starting, was more about a charity. It was more like, well, I have daughters that play. I want to give them an opportunity to see it. And it really wasn't about a business model. It wasn't about professionalism. It was more like, yeah, we'll do it, and that was not as sustainable. And so that was problematic as, the leagues moved forward and then the leagues ceased to exist. And when the NWSL came around, there wasn't anybody that was willing to take a chance. They didn't have the vision. They didn't see the value of women's soccer. And really, the landscape of sports at the time really was not as open. Even though we, the U.S. women's national team, had really great results, super amounts of support, it still wasn't translating business-wise. And I think that's something that when the league got to its 10th year, and now we're in the 11th year, and now Angel City and San Diego, have teams, and Northern California, Cal, Stanford, Santa Clara, San Jose State, we have good soccer that exists here. And it just so happens that Allie Wagner, Danielle Slayton, Leslie Osborne, and myself, when Angel City announced, Leslie called us and she's like, what are we doing? I mean, why aren't we doing anything? And we thought, yeah, why aren't we doing something? We need to get into this game. And we all brought something different to the group. And what we did recognize and what we do believe in is that the business of women's sports is real. Now, I've historically said the deepest, richest, most untapped well of talent is women's sports, because we've been dipping into men's sports in every way possible. And if somebody had the courage and the wisdom and some deep pockets, we could do something here. And so we're doing something here.
Yeah.
And that for us now at BFC, our charge is that we can be the brand that stands alone atop of all the other brands. And what do we stand for? And And we're not just a soccer club, even though that's the nuts and bolts that people see right now. But really, our players are going to go out into the world and they're going to do and be other things. And we want them to leave AFC saying, this was a whole person experience. I became a better player, a better person, a better teammate. I got exposure to the Silicon Valley. I met entrepreneurs. I met CEOs. I met executives. I met women who were running companies. I was interested in engineering or in tech or in whatever, and I had an opportunity. And so we see ourselves as being more than. That's what we want to be.
I love that. Again, the multidimensional human being developed here, and not just as a commodity to just make us money and be on the field, but you're thinking about what they're learning and what you're giving them and developing in them for future.
I think if you feed them that way, results will start to go your way. You'll be rewarded for that. It's not a charity. It's not a charity. It's a professional environment. And the expectations are very high. And the standards need to be there because the rest of the league will gobble you up if you don't embrace that. So we are an expansion team and it's a hard year, but we have to endure. We have to figure it out.
Yep. In your role with AFC and reflecting on your own career, how do you feel the mental health discussion has shifted or not shifted, or like what have you seen over the decades when it comes to mental health, talking about it?
Well, I think number one is I love that we can just say it out loud in normal conversations. It's not vilified. It's not hidden anymore. It's not like that's not crazy. These are real things that people are experiencing. And thank goodness, thank goodness. It's normal. I say it all the time. I say you're having a normal human experience.
Yeah.
And that's important. I think, our league has gone through so much trauma, and there was a lot of people who were not supporting good mental health that in fact were really putting mental health in a really we're abusing the space. And the league has cleaned up. The league has changed for the better. We have now protection policies. The player is first. What are the needs of the player? I mean, I recall this very vividly, Lisa, that we were talking about prior to the first Olympics, how are we going to win this Olympics? And we realized that everybody was fast. Everybody had stamina. Everyone had strength. Everyone had technical ability. Tactical ability, some were better than others, some game plans better. But that mental fortitude, the resilience that it took, the awareness and willingness to be under pressure and to, gobble it up for breakfast was the difference maker for us. Could we be strong when we were weak? Could we find support when we felt like we were alone? How do we do our job plus half of somebody else's in support of them and not have that be like, oh, that player is weaker or they're not good enough? That's not what it is. To be a really great team, we needed everybody to commit to the Olympic mantras, faster, higher, stronger, right? You know? And we committed to that. And that became our calling card for the rest of, I think, what you'll hear about the women's national team is we won games before we started them because we had decided we were going to put it all out there. And that's scary. We're scared of the teams. And what are we willing to give? And how are we willing to support? And how can you be a competitor against your teammate in an environment where you also have to support them? That's tough.
Yeah.
And that is a great skill. That is an amazing skill to have. And so we did all these. We did the exercises. We did the things that some people would be like, oh, that's so corny. I'm like, I don't care. Call me corny. I think those games that we play learning resiliency and teamwork and fun little things. Those are the foundation. And you got to know that someone's got your back, and they have to know that you got theirs, and that we're going to go, again, same theme, we're going to go through this together.
Yeah.
You can't be that one dimensional, right? You have to have all those other things along with that mental capacity, right? You have to have the physical, you have to have, so it's not like if you have one area like in spades, but you're not taking care of these other ones, it won't work.
Right.
It's not going to work.
It's got to be a balanced experience.
Yeah.
I've heard so many times that youth female soccer players have shown vulnerability to their coaches and shared that they're not having a good mental health day or they're not in a good space and they haven't been treated positively. You know?
Well, yeah. I'm going to say that I come from the generation that was like, put some dirt on it, shake it off, just get on with it. And so myself, like even as a leader, I had to be like, okay, what does it mean when someone's saying they're not feeling good? Like we have to know our people, as coaches. We have to know, is there somebody who's always trying to get away with something? Is there somebody who's just so tough they just can't stop themselves? They can't rest. And there's everybody in between, right? And so we really have to be mindful about who our people are. And we need to also be able to listen to them and say, all right, take the afternoon. Or I have to be able to say to them, this is not going to be easy, but I need you to go through this. And I need you to show your teammates that you can do this. This is important for our group. Like that happened to me in college when, after my second knee surgery, Jerry, who was the coach, was pushing me. And I was like, man, I'm a good soccer player. I don't need to do that stuff. That's for the players who aren't good. Terrible attitude. I admit that. It was horrible. And he's like, well, we don't really need you. We have a team of people who will work hard. And I said, well, I don't need that. And he says, fine, we part ways. I think 2 days later or a day and a half later, I came back and I said, I think I made a mistake. I would like to ask for another chance. And without hesitation, he said, yeah, come on out. We have practice at 2:00. And what he did do, however, was he made practice the most grueling practice. I think we ran 90% of the time. But what ended up happening was I didn't see the back of anyone's shirt. I ran harder because I all of a sudden realized what it meant to me and that it could be gone. And that I wasn't being honest with myself. I was taking things for granted. I wasn't being tough. I wasn't doing what other people were doing. And that showed really a lack of leadership and respect. And so that was a pivotal moment in my life that everybody has to do it. Doesn't matter who you are. Everybody has to do it.
Such an important, we said we were going to talk for 40 minutes and I'm over here. It's like an hour and a half probably by now. I haven't looked, but we could talk for probably 2 hours more. I can't appreciate you enough. This is a Friday evening in both of our lives. We could be doing other things. I appreciate you being here with me and sharing all your wisdom and all your experience. It's going to help people. It's going to touch people. It's going to move people to change and to also be reassured in what they're already doing. So,
yeah, if there's one thing that I could add or leave you with, Lisa,
of course, please,
or everybody else, is that, these stories are just mine. Nobody's journey will be the same, just like no two soccer games or basketball games or softball games or swim meets will be the same. There will always be something different about them. And I think what I want to make sure that everybody knows is that all we're asking is that you just come and be your best person, right? Don't come and say, I want to be Lisa or I want to be Brandi, because it's not happening. It's just not going to happen. And you're good enough. We'll figure out, and you'll figure out ways to be your best star, and you'll shine in your own light. And I think that's really important. And with technology these days, that becomes harder and harder every day. So be your best you. That's the most important thing you can be.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that last note. And with that, Thank you so much, and good night to everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
Athlete Mindset is part of the CASSource Podcast Network. At CASSource, we love podcasts. In fact, we love building podcasts, everything from development to production. Because of all that, we're growing this one-of-a-kind podcast network. If you have a podcast or looking to launch a new podcast, then we should talk. You can message me on Twitter at Eric_Kaz, or hit us up any way that works for you by searching CASSource on your social media app of choice. Let's talk about your podcast joining this one-of-a-kind podcast network, the CASSource Podcast Network.